Hey everyone, I just finished reading The Hunchback of Notre-Dame for the fourth time. This is my all-time favorite book, but it was the first time reading it in English and also the first time annotating the book. I thought it would be an interesting idea to kind of do a flip through, so yeah, I hope you guys find it interesting. Keep in mind that there are going to be spoilers, so if you haven't read the book, I am going to show you my reactions and quotes from the book that might be a huge spoiler, so keep that in mind. Now, if you've already read a book, it is easier to decide the second time or third or fourth time to decide what you're going to be tracking. So I knew from the beginning that I wanted to track everything from different characters. So I decided to track the main characters: Pierre, Gringoire, Claude, Esmeralda, Quasimodo, and I think on the back we also have Phoebus and La Chantefleurie. And then I also decided to mark sad moments, history, funny things, and then references to, other authors and works. And yeah, those were the main things that I kept track of. I also had a halfway the book, I also decided to track some things about the Disney movie from 1993, I think, because I saw some things that they did in the movie and they did it so well. So yeah, that's something that I kept track of too, but a little too late because I was already halfway. But anyway, let's get into the book. First thing I marked is a history mark, and it says 1482 because it's interesting to know when the story is taking place. On this page, Hugo was making his point about saving architecture and the importance of architecture and how it is a shame to have it ruined or destroyed, and I really love that. And here I also marked a quote. Here is my first mark for Pierre. I think he is my favorite character. He's so funny, he makes me laugh all the time. Here we have an introduction of Claude's brother, and I don't know how to pronounce it. I think it's Jean, but I'm not sure. It's like in an old medieval version, I think, of Jean. But I marked here a tab for sadness because he's like scolding a beggar asking for alms, and I wrote down here, what does this say about Jean's character, about his heart, because he is giving a very rude comment. Here I marked a funny quote from Pierre. Here was my first tab for Quasimodo. Another funny moment. Okay, here I marked a lot apparently. So let's see. Oh, okay, so here we have a lot of descriptions about Quasimodo. And I love the way that Quasimodo is described. Here we see he's a mixture of malice, amazement, and sadness. And I've written down here I've written down here, already I feel such pity for the bell ringer. I love that he also gets positive traits, courage, agility, and vigor. Here I marked, but it was then that surprise and admiration attained their highest pitch. The grimace was his face. And he also gets described as an air of vigor, agility, courage. One would have pronounced him a giant who has been broken and badly put together again. Oh my gosh, I love that. Perfection of his ugliness. And I marked this because Esmeralda gets described as the opposite. She's like the perfect beauty and he is so perfect in his ugliness. So yeah, I love that parallel. Here I wrote down, there's a lot of emphasis about the fact that Quasimodo's ugliness is so perfect. So that's what I meant, what I said earlier. He allowed them to admire him. You possess the handsomest ugliness that I have ever beheld in my life. So there's a lot of emphasis about him being so perfect in his ugliness. Now here we have our first step for Esmeralda. Oh, by the way, I use yellow for quotes, and I really love this one. This gloom pleased him. He was in haste to reach some obscure and deserted alley, in order there to meditate at his ease, and in order that the philosopher might place the first dressing upon the wound of the poet. Here's a funny moment of Pierre saying, "Oh," said he, "I would gladly drown myself were the water not so cold." He's also always being so dramatic. I love it. Oh, what have I written down here? Oh yeah, so here on this page, Hugo makes his statement about the death penalty. I've also recently read The Last Day of a Condemned Man, and this is really like linked together. He's making a statement of the terror of the scaffold. Something about Pierre here, and Esmeralda here is, for the first time I think Pierre sees Esmeralda and he's amazed by her dazzling vision. Here is the first time that Claude is reacting to Esmeralda, and he says that sorcery is at the bottom of this. Here's a moment between Esmeralda and Pierre for the first time, which is really cute. Descriptions of Esmeralda. Here is something more about Quasimodo. It was the first enjoyment of self-love that he had ever experienced. Down to that day, he had known only humiliation, disdain for his condition, disgust for his person. He is described as robust, agile, malicious. There is a strange dialogue of signs and gestures between Claude and Quasimodo. He is prostrate, humble, and suppliant. Another quote by Pierre. Here Phoebus makes his entrance, and there's a quote about Quasimodo that I also really loved here. And here is another quote that I love too. Here I had a word that I didn't understand, so I looked it up and I put it here for the next time that I reread it. Here's a quote that I loved, and I also wrote down in just a few sentences, it is revealed that the handsome captain is proud and confident. I feel like you immediately get this vibe about Phoebus and who he is. I loved this dialogue between Pierre and Esmeralda. So Pierre marries Esmeralda, and they have a dialogue because she cannot stop thinking about Phoebus and how he saved her. And this was a dialogue that I really, really loved. Pierre is always so funny. Here's some backstory about Pierre. Here I've written down, Pierre trying to impress Esmeralda is both pathetic and terribly cute. She's clearly only thinking about her Phoebus. And then something about the goat, because Pierre and the goat get into some kind of love relationship. Here I have a quote that I really love about the Notre-Dame Cathedral. Time is blind, man is stupid. A symphony in stone. The backstory about Claude and how he adopted Quasimodo. Claude's compassion increased at the sight of his ugliness. Quasimodo is almost described as a building. Quasimodo is truly part of the architecture, so I love the connection with Quasimodo and his descriptions, because he's described as like a building, badly constructed, a shadowy interior, obscure corners, and throughout the book it gets, Quasimodo is always getting described as this kind of building. It is certain that the mind becomes atrophied in a defective body. Oh, and this must be one of my favorite quotes from the book. I love this part so much. It's so well described and beautiful. This is also one of my favorite quotes, like, to such an extent was this disease for those who know that Quasimodo had existed. Notre Dame is today deserted, inanimate, dead. One feels that something has disappeared from it. That immense body is empty. It is a skeleton. The spirit has quitted it. One sees its place, and that is all. It is like a skull, which still has holes for the eyes, but no longer sight. Gosh, I love this quote. Now, to give the big bell in marriage to Quasimodo was to give Juliet to Romeo. Here, Hugo makes his point about the importance of architecture again. Architecture was the great handwriting of the human race. Every human thought has its page and its monument in that immense book. Here, I didn't really know what the word meant, but Gutenberg is actually, he was the man who introduced letterpress printing in Europe. This is history. Here's a reference to Virgil. Here I added a little post-it because there is a person that has 3 names. Sometimes she is called Sister Gudule, sometimes Paquette, and sometimes La Chantefleurie. Here I've written down, just like Quasi is one with the cathedral, so is Paquette one with her cell. And both their stories are so sad. One would have said that she had turned to stone with her cell, eyes with the season. He put his waistcoat on the wrong side out, and I know Victor Hugo did this also. He turned around his coats to not buy a new one and to give instead the money to the poor. This quote, it seemed to her that all the wounds of her heart opened and bled simultaneously. This is a quote by Claude. I desired to see you again, to touch you, to know who you were, to see whether I should really find you like the ideal image which I had retained for you, to shatter my dream perchance with reality. This is also a beautiful quote. While I bear the dungeon within me there is winter, ice, despair. I have night in my soul. Here Quasimodo saves Esmeralda. I really love this moment. This quote is so beautiful and heartbreaking. At one moment, Quasimodo is talking to the stone gargoyles in the cathedral, and because he often talks with them, and he says, "Oh, why am I not made of stone like you?" And I really find that so sad and beautiful. Heartbreaking. His heart was swollen with all the tears which he was swallowing. Gosh. Here Claude makes Esmeralda choose between him and the death penalty, and Esmeralda says, "It causes me less horror than you do." This is such a strong description because Quasimodo is deaf, and I don't know, this is so strong. This description is just spot on. So yeah, these were my annotations for Notre Dame. I hope you found it interesting. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you for watching. Bye.